I'm Sam. Welcome to Kitchen Basics. Today I'm going to show you how to successfully and safely use a cooktop. This cooktop is called a stovetop because it's directly on top of an oven. There are also different types of cooktops that can be built right into your kitchen countertop. The two most common cooktops are either going to be electric or gas powered. So with gas stovetops, we're going to be using a flame to cook the food. The higher the flame, the higher the temperature, and vice versa. When we're lighting the gas stovetop, we look here to see which burner we're going to light, and then we're going to turn this dial all the way down to see where it says light here until you'll hear a clicking sound. Once you hear that clicking sound, that's the ignition starting the flame. Once you hear that, then you can turn it down to the dial where you want your heat. So let's do it. You hear that clicking, there's the flame, and now I can turn it down to where I'd like it. So when you're done with it, you can just turn the dial back to the off position. Sometimes when you go to turn these gas-powered stovetops on, you'll hear the clicking, but the ignition won't be lighting the flame. When you do this and the flame doesn't start, it's very important to not leave this gas on, because that's just gas coming out of there. You have to turn this off. Electric cooktops just use electricity or electric coils to heat instead of gas and flames. Electric cooktops can be turned on with similar knobs or just touchpad controls. The electric coils can be on or underneath the cooktop surface, and when you turn them on, they're going to become hot immediately, and they'll eventually become red. When you're done cooking whatever you're cooking on the electric coils, when you turn that off, it's still going to be hot, so you can overcook your food. So when you turn it off, just remember that it's going to stay cooking your food and may overcook. So you're going to want to either take that off, or if it still needs a little bit of time to cook, then that's okay to leave it on there. But it will stay cooking. We're just going to go over some parts of the stove that you're going to need to know. So we've seen the knobs and how to turn those on and off, right? Here's where the flame comes out. These are the grates. You're not going to want to touch these. These are going to get very hot, so where you're going to want to place your pan. Some other parts of the stovetop, you have a timer here, right? You can turn that on and off, set it. And then you also have a light right here also, so you can see what you're doing, right? That's a good thing. So we're going to be talking about hood vents when you're cooking. They're very important. They're going to be able to help with steam and smoke and the smells that are coming off while you're cooking on the cooktop. Our vent here on this cooktop is built right into the microwave. So you see the button right here, and it has a couple settings, so it can be low or high depending on how much smoke, steam is going on. So you can just simply press the button. It's high, press it again for low, press it again and it's off. Hood vents can also hang from the ceiling, or you could have downdraft vents, and they all have the same purpose. You don't have to use the fan every time we're cooking something, but it really helps, the high and low settings, especially when you're cooking things like bacon that has a lot of smoke and steam to it. All of these cooktops work a little differently, so it's important to find out which one you have and how it operates before you start using it. We're going to talk about the two major safety concerns while you're using a stovetop. Starting a fire is one of them, and also getting a burn. So when you're starting the stove or cooking anytime while you're cooking, just really make sure that everything like we got a few examples here, you really don't want to have any of this stuff close to the flame while you're cooking. It's a huge hazard. So just move it out of the way, and then you're safe. While you're cooking, you really don't want to wear anything. You see how I got this scarf? You don't want to wear anything while you're leaning over that might catch on fire. So you just want to pay attention to what you're wearing while you're cooking. And also, see how you have your sleeves down? You might just want to roll your sleeves up a little bit, have those out of the way also. While you're cooking, you want to stay, it depends on what you're cooking, but you want to stay close to the range. Also, while you're taking your hot pot or pan off the stove, we're going to go over what you want to use to take it off. So I have a dry pot holder. I say dry because it's very important. You don't want this to be wet in any way because it'll steam and that'll burn your hand right through the towel. So a dry pot holder gives you a good grip to take that right off. What you don't want to use is, here we just have a dish towel that kind of hangs down like this. That can be really dangerous because that'll catch on fire. When you are ready to take the pot off or whatever you're cooking, when you're ready to take that off, just make sure when you do, you want to turn your gas off before you take it off. While you're cooking anything in a pot like this, today we're cooking pasta, so I have my water here waiting to boil, but I only filled it up about 3/4 of the way full. While it boils, it'll this will boil right over if the pot is too full with water. Also, it just makes it a lot easier when you're bringing pots over to the sink to drain, anything like that. You just don't want it to boil over. So it's a good rule of thumb to just keep everything that you're cooking in a pot about 3/4 of the way full, never all the way up to the brim. If your water that you're boiling or anything that you're cooking in the pot does start to overflow over the pan, all you have to do is simply turn the heat down. Now we're going to talk about while you're cooking with grease, oil, butter, anything like that, and it catches fire in a pan, don't try to remove it. You should not try to remove it from the heat. Instead, cover it. That should stop the flame. We also have pour salt on it. Baking soda will stop the fire. If none of those work, we have a fire extinguisher. Have that in the kitchen or your house. And then if the fire gets out of control, obviously you want to call 911. And very important to never try to throw or dump water on a grease fire. A lot of cases, you can put water on fire to extinguish it, but not in this, not with grease. So you don't want to put water on it. Any one of these other options that will work. If you get burned doing anything while you're cooking, you just want to turn off the heat and then come over and run the burn under some cool water for a little bit. So we're going to go over a few different types of pots and pans that we normally use in the kitchen. Here are some basic ones. We just have a skillet, a metal frying pan, metal pot, and this one here is non-stick. So the non-stick pans are great for food that you want to cook, like eggs that seem to, if you try to cook an egg in here, it's gonna turn into a mess. So the non-stick pans are great for that. The only thing you want to watch out for while using a non-stick pan is you don't want to use anything with metal, because you're gonna scrape that pan and it's gonna ruin the non-stick coating. So when you're cooking in a non-stick pan, it's best to use rubber utensils or wooden. When you're cooking on a stovetop, so I just want to talk about. You see the handle here that it's sticking out like this. Just a good rule of thumb always when you're cooking, you just want to move that handle using your pot holder at all times. Just make sure that handle is kind of out of the way for when you're walking by. You can't knock into it. This just can be just a hazard. It can just get in the way and it can just knock over. It can be dangerous. So you just want to keep that out of the way at all times. You also see you don't want to have it over here also. You might have a couple things cooking at the same time. If this fire is on, that could also be dangerous. So just always be aware of where your pot handle is at all times. Today we're going to be making scrambled eggs. Pretty easy thing to be making on your stovetop, and I'm just going to go over everything you need and how to do that. So first, let me just show you just everything you might need to make scrambled eggs. I just have salt and pepper here, half and half, eggs, your rubber spatula, a fork or a whisk, your non-stick pan, and some butter. So first and foremost, I'm going to wash my hands. It's usually the first thing that we always want to do when we're in the kitchen. So I'm just going to wash my hands real quick. some soapy water. All right, and let's get cooking. So we're just gonna crack our eggs. We're just gonna make 3 eggs today. You got your eggs here. I find that it's a lot easier to crack your eggs right on the table on a flat surface, as opposed to I see a lot of people just kind of doing it on the side of the bowl. But a flat surface works really well. And make sure you have your trash can or a compost bin close, so you can just throw your eggshells right in there. There's 1. 2. And 3. After I touch those raw eggs, I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. Very important to keep some clean hands while you're cooking. All right, so we're done with these. So next I'm just gonna add a touch of half and half right into the bowl with your eggs. Just a little bit. All right, you have your fork, or a whisk works really well. Good trick to this is you just wanna poke those egg yolks before you do anything, right? And then you can start whisking them up. You see that right there? Kind of making circular motions with the fork. And while I'm holding the fork, I kind of hold it like a pencil, right? Just keep whisking. Oh, it's all right. If you make a little mess, it happens. So the key to good scrambled eggs or omelets is those eggs just getting really well beaten and mixed up. You can kind of stop and check to see if you have, sometimes you can see some of the egg whites still left over there. Just keep on whisking. Can't really over whisk your eggs. All right, that'll be good for now. All right, and clean up your surface a little bit. Spills, anything like that. We're pretty much almost ready to get cooking. One thing that I like doing with my scrambled eggs though is I mentioned having butter here. So we're going to use the butter to cook, but I'm also going to add butter at the end of the eggs. It just gives it a really nice texture and nice and rich. So I'm going to need a knife to just make some small pieces of butter to add in there at the end. And I just want to touch on while you're using a cutting board. Okay, I have a damp paper towel here. I like to put on the bottom of the cutting board. See that? And now your cutting board won't slide all around on you while you're using a knife. All right, it's safe. It's important to be safe. So I'm just gonna make a few dices of butter. You don't need too much. Just making 3 eggs, right? Keeping my fingers out of the way while I'm cutting. And I just end up with little pads of butter, just like this. All right. Keep those out of the way. Excellent, and we're ready to start cooking them. We're ready to start cooking our scrambled eggs. I'm gonna go ahead and get this pan, or get the fire going. Make sure your sleeves are rolled out, like we talked about, right? And let's get this on. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at a good high heat. Okay, and just set that pan on there. Wait for it to warm up a little bit. Like I said, I have my scrambled eggs here. I have my butter ready, salt and pepper. Rubber spatula we're gonna need to get the eggs out of the pan. Just add some butter and see if you see it start melting there. So we know that's it's getting ready to cook here. Sometimes cooking just involves a little bit of patience. You see that start melting there. Right, you can move your butter around a little bit. Just really want to coat that whole pan. Use your rubber spatula, move that butter around. See how I'm getting that whole pan right there? Excellent. So you don't want your pan too hot while you're cooking eggs, or else they're gonna brown when you hit the pan. So I think that's looking pretty good. You see how that butter's kind of bubbling a little bit? You can tell it's getting hot. I'm gonna give my eggs one last whisk. I'm gonna add that right to the pan. Okay. So our eggs are cooking now. While they're cooking, just keep stirring them, okay? They're scrambled, right? Just scramble them up. You can kind of tell how those eggs are like they're just becoming cooked right there. It really doesn't take a long time. See that? They're almost done. So right before they're done, and you kind of want to, you can move your pan off the heat a little bit, right? Stay scrambling them. Right before they're done, just add a little salt and pepper. Right? And a couple of those, the pads of butter that I was talking about. Add those right in there. Back on the heat. Scramble them up till that butter's melted. So the eggs are done now. So I'm gonna cut off the heat, okay? And we're ready to plate them up. That non-stick pan, it's good if you can just slide them right off. Cool. All right, so we are ready to make our grilled cheeses now. All right, not a ton of ingredients to grilled cheese. You can use a lot of different cheeses though if you like, or you could add things to your grilled cheese. A lot of people, I see a lot of tomatoes or bacon, but today we're just gonna be using American cheese and some tried and true white bread. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. Okay. We're gonna need butter while we're cooking our grilled cheese. In this case, so soft butter is great because you can just kind of spread it right on your bread here. Sometimes we don't have soft butter. I just got this butter out of the fridge. So I'm just gonna melt it, okay? And that's why I have this brush here. So I'm gonna just melt butter and use that brush to kind of get it on the bread like that. Some butter up. Great, easy way to melt butter. Throw it in the microwave, right? Just like so. It doesn't need a lot of time. How about 15 seconds? We'll see if that melts it. Get these papers off the cheese here. I think 2 pieces of cheese should be enough for what we're doing. Hear the beep. Butter's still got a little bit to go. Just another 5 seconds. All right. Making sure that bowl's not too hot. I'll reach in to grab that. So you can use this culinary brush here. Very useful. Just kind of mix up your butter a little bit. Yeah. So I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna get my pan hot because you're gonna want your pan to be hot as you add your grilled cheese. Okay. So I'm just gonna come over here, have my non-stick pan. I'm gonna get this fired up. That. Like probably medium to high heat. Let's see, a couple ways to do this. I'm just gonna go ahead and brush the butter onto both pieces of bread here. And the part of the bread that I'm brushing butter onto, this is gonna be the side that's gonna go down onto the pan, right? Just like that. Butter makes everything give a good, rich flavor and texture. It's gonna brown up really nice. So while I'm doing this, I'm always thinking, right, that I have my pan on, and that's very important. Just kind of always keep a mental note that your pan, that you have fire going on your grill. So even though I'm over here doing this, I'm constantly just making sure that I know that the fire is going over there and that the pan is getting hot. Okay? So I have my 2 pieces of buttered bread here, and remember this side is going down on the pan, right? This side's going down on the pan, which means this side will get the cheese, right? Just 1 piece on each toast, just like that. Right? So my pan is probably hot now, right? It's just been a couple minutes. I'm gonna take both these pieces of bread, come right over to the pan. I'm gonna lay this bread on the pan. You hear that? A good rule of thumb, I'm just kind of holding the cheese and bread just like this, with the butter side down. And I'm going to lay this piece of bread away from me. See that? It just drops right on there. Just getting that spatula underneath the bread, and I'm just going to look under there to see how this bread is browning, okay? Because with the butter on the other side of there, it's going to just be turning the bread nice and brown and turning it into toast, right? You can also kind of see the cheese starting to melt, and it's looking good. So I'm just going to get my spatula under there. Right? You can use your hands, just be very, very careful. And I'm just gonna sandwich those 2 pieces of bread together. And I'm gonna turn off the heat, okay? Because you see how this is brown right there? If I leave it on the heat like that, it might burn, okay? So yeah, so it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna flip it over, right? See how the other side's looking? I think that's looking pretty great. The American cheese melts nice and easily. So I'm just going to leave that on there for a second. Using your rubber spatula, and get right in the underneath there. And I can bring it right over to my cutting board. Okay. And there you have it. Just going to use my knife very carefully, keeping my fingers out of the way. Cut it right down the middle. See that? Nice and melted. Excellent. That's what we want. Alright, so we are going to be making very simple but tried and true spaghetti and just some red sauce here, some marinara. So we bought this red sauce here. So that's all made for you. You just need to heat it up. So you see the basic supplies and ingredients I have going. I have my water boiling for the pasta. So we're just going to be boiling our pasta and then straining it. Just going to come right over here. Go ahead and dump just what you need for sauce, right? And I'm going to turn this on. So when you're cooking these pre-made sauces like this, I always like to just do it nice and low. Just bring it up to heat nice and slow. It's very easy to burn, especially because we're going to stay whisking it, right? Or just stirring it. So I have my rubber spatula here. Just going to stay stirring this occasionally. You don't have to stand over it and do it the whole time, but occasionally just give it a stir, keep it on low heat, and make sure you don't burn. We'll check our water to see how we're doing with the pasta. Right, being careful when I take that lid off with a pot holder, because this is going to be hot, right? You can see here that we got a boil. Excellent. So what I like to do to the water while I'm cooking pasta is I'll add a little bit of salt. I'm just going to very, very carefully add the pasta to your boiling water. Okay? Be very careful not to touch it. You see how that pasta doesn't quite necessarily fit in the pan there? That's okay, because while it's cooking, it's going to start getting a little flexible. See, it already has a little bit. And you can kind of just bend that pasta. See that? And then it fits right in there. I'm just going to give that a quick stir. Making sure all that pasta is submerged in there. Right? Excellent. And you can already hear our sauce over here. Even though it's on low heat, you can kind of hear it start to bubble. Right? You can see a little steam coming off of it. That means it's heating up. Just a quick stir. Alright, so it's been about 10 minutes or so. I've just been kind of stirring this pasta. And it looks, you can kind of tell by looking at it. But just for safety's sake here, we're going to try to grab one of these pastas here and just set it on something like this. Put it on a plate or something. I'm just going to kind of cut into it. Or the best way to tell if it's done, right? And like break it apart, maybe taste test it, and you can tell that's done. Soft. I'm gonna wash my hands. All right. So the pasta is done. So I'm going to turn off the heat. Right? Real quick also, the sauce, I'm just going to give another stir. As long as it's on nice and low heat, okay, you should be all set. And then, so we're ready to strain our pasta, because it's all done, right? So I'm just going to grab this with the heat off. I'm going to grab this with a pot holder. Bring this over to the sink. And I have my strainer here, right? You want to get rid of the water, keep the pasta. Right into the strainer. Alright. It's all set up. Bring that right over. Right in the bowl. There's the pasta. We see that our red sauce here is kind of bubbling. You see the steam coming off of it. You can smell it. You can tell that it's hot and ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off. And with a pot holder, just going to bring this over. Very careful, it's going to be hot. I'm just going to put that right on the pasta. Go back on the stove top. And then we have some grated Parmesan cheese here. Always a great idea. You're having some pasta and red sauce. You can put as much or as little as you want on there. And there you have it. Spaghetti and red sauce. So that about does it. I hope you guys learned a thing or two, and I hope you enjoyed watching. And I hope you enjoyed cooking. I truly love cooking, you know, for myself and especially for other people. And I hope you guys enjoy it as well. And yeah, until next time.